All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Brian Hayes, my good buddy Jonas Siegel from The Athletic in studio. What's happening, Jonas?
I'm just digesting July 1.
You're still digesting?
Yeah.
5 days later.
Yeah, aren't you? I'm still thinking
so.
about it all the time, like what happened, what's going to happen.
You know what's wild is I think historically what that date will be remembered for more in terms of North American sports is Damian Lillard demanding a trade on July 1st, right? Because there was a lot of activity in the NHL, and we'll get to that. And there's still a number of guys left to be signed. Yeah. Some pretty big names who are no longer in their prime. But Patrick Kane's out there. We don't know what's going to happen with Taves. Tarasenko's got new representation. There's still trades to be made. Some big names out there that we think could be flipped. Erik Karlsson, Alex DeBrincat, maybe Hellebuck, maybe Scheifele. Although Cheveldayoff, the GM in Winnipeg, kind of put some cold water on that idea that those two guys are going to be moved during his press conference. Yet with all of that activity, it had to be July 1 where Damian Lillard, Mr. Loyalty in Portland, decided that's enough. You're not trying hard enough to help me win a championship, so I'm out. Right? That's what happened on July 1.
Don't you think it was kind of like neither side wanted to be the one to say, like, you know what?
Passive aggressive. It's probably in our best interest for both of us to break this
because
off.
like the Blazers don't want to come out and be like, we got to trade this guy, our best player ever. And Damian Lillard's probably like, you know what? Like, I've been loyal for so long. Like, you know what? It's so awkward. Like,
it's a really good point, though, Jonas, that the players are always getting blamed for demanding out.
Yes.
Or forcing their way out.
Asking too much money.
Asking for too much.
Yes.
Yet how many times has it happened where the teams are actually really happy that the player wants out?
Now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is weird because, like, he's been this great Blazer. He's done everything you want. And the team's probably like, thank God.
Thank you.
Like, we got to do, like, what was the option? Like, just keep rolling it. Well, keep rolling it back.
Interesting how that you kind of fell backwards into that one, didn't you? Yeah, because there is a situation like that in Toronto, clearly.
Oh, yeah, really?
With the Leafs, but possibly with the Raptors. Like, I don't think it was 100% guaranteed Masai Ujiri wanted Fred VanVleet back. I
think it's unlikely.
Yeah. Like, I think he wanted him back. The reports are that they were obviously trying to keep him. But at 100% effort, like, really, really wanted Fred.
Because this is a weird question, but what's the point? Like, let's say you sign him back, right? Let's say it was like 3 for $90. What's the team? Like, where's the team going? Is the team going to be any different than next year?
No, I think the ceiling is 4th in the East. You know, is that the ceiling, 4th or 5th in the East?
5th or 6th in the East?
Maybe.
Lose in the first round?
Like, avoid the play-in, make sure you get in, know that you're going to play some home dates.
And what do we know about Masai Ujiri? Doesn't like that, right? Like,
he doesn't like that, but he also doesn't like bottoming out. So
they're in a
it's kind of difficult
place, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of difficult to get a read on how you define Masai, because obviously when he went all in on Kawhi, that had built up year over year over year. They were a really good team. Kept losing generally to the same guy.
Yeah.
Right? Generally to LeBron James, and definitely had some underwhelming playoff experiences, but they were knocking on the door. They were a 50-win team kind of year after year after year, or in that ballpark.
Remember that dig from LeBron? Remember that? I forget at which point it was in that series against the Raptors where he basically said, like, I've been in 10 situations. This isn't one of them.
Yeah.
And that's when, like, if I was Masai, I'd be like, okay, all right.
Was that after out. They lost 2 in Cleveland, came home and won both in Toronto, and then still LeBron was like, I don't care. And I think LeBron and the Cavs won in 6.
Yeah.
In fact, I was in the building for Game 6 when LeBron closed the deal, and I think that's when the crowd was going crazy, and LeBron had that famous interview where he was saying, like, listen to this crowd. I've never heard anything like this. These people show up in Toronto, and I'm pretty sure that was Game 6 after he was not feeling overly concerned about 2-2 back to Cleveland for Game 5.
Yeah.
But that would be great. Like, we were talking about it towards the end of Owen Noodles before they go on their sabbatical, you know, trying to develop this truth serum bit, where you can force someone to take truth serum and they have to answer 100% candid. And I'd love to get Masai's take on that.
What is it? Did you come up with a name for it? Because I got one if you don't have it.
We're all ears.
This is good. What if you call it the lie detector?
The lie detector.
That's good, right?
I like that. The lie detector. Okay. We can work that out. Why don't we work this bit out today?
All right.
And if it comes together today, great. If not, later in the summer. But how much did you really want Fred? Like, did you want him at 60%? And that's good enough to offer him a deal, maybe 32, 33 million a year. Mm-hmm. Was it 70%, 80%? And how much does that apply to different, like William Nylander? We'll just get right out in front of it.
Do it.
Does Brad Treliving, does Brendan Shanahan, do they want him like 100% got to have him? Or do they want him at like a 70% capacity? In other words, they're willing to do it. They're willing to maybe meet him, not quite halfway there, but move in his direction a little bit.
So the lie detector is the Leafs are willing to sign William Nylander at any cost.
There's no way that's the case.
So that's not true, right?
That is not true.
Okay.
That would be lying off the charts. Because if that were to be the case, on July 5th, it would have been done, I think, 5 days ago, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you have a stance on this? Everyone seems to have a stance on where Willie's at.
What do you want to know? Of course I have thoughts.
Well, how far are you willing to go?
So one of the things that I don't get is there's this idea, well, you can't pay, like you can pay him 9, right? But nothing, like you guys talked about this, I think one of the other days. What is your walkaway number? I think is how I wrote it at one point.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we'll do 9. But 9.5, no way. And I just don't understand that. I don't understand why that would be the difference in getting rid of a good player and not getting rid of a good player. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. Even, and this will probably push you, even if it was 10 and you're willing to do 9, just do it. I don't get why that's such. There's these like lines where you're like, you can't cross that line.
But there has to be a line though, right? So if you
don't
keep
know.
bending, but that's the whole point.
I just don't know what the line is.
Like for you, maybe it is 10. I can understand that. I don't personally agree with that, but I can reason with that. That is not outlandish. If William Nylander walked in the studio right now and said, I've scored 40, I'm a point-a-game guy, I'm in my mid-20s, and I believe I'm going to do this for the next 6-7 years, I want $10 million, I would not laugh him out of this room. I'd say, I understand where you're coming from, Willie. Like, it wouldn't change my mind necessarily, but I'm also not suggesting, I don't think anybody is, that he should be making 7, or 7.5. It seems like most people concede it's going to be somewhere between 8.5 and 10.
I don't think it's going to be 8.5.
No, I don't think it'll be 8.5 either.
If it's 8.5, he'll just go to free agency.
Yeah, like, I think they know it won't be 8.5 because I think he feels like he's got a better case than Pierre-Luc Dubois, who just signed for 8.5. I think he looks at Timo Meier, which was $8.8 million per, and Willie is looking at it saying, I got another year left on my deal. Like, I'm not an RFA right now.
I don't need to sign.
I'm not a UFA right now. I don't have to sign. So he will not budge. He has proven that in the past. He will negotiate with vigor, and he's got principles in terms of the way he believes he should approach it. He and his group, his dad, his agent, everyone, within his crew, which he's entitled to. Every player has that same type of kind of support system. And he doesn't have to abide by any timeline right now.
That's what I think is
But there has to be a line at some point.
So what's your line?
If it's an 8-year deal and it's 9.5 and that's what has to happen, fine. But I think there's principle at play here. And there's also a slippery slope that I think has led to the Leafs to be in the position they're currently in with that type of attitude.
Isn't that cat out of the bag?
But that's why you got to get it back in the bag. I think you have to get in the bag.
Cat in the bag.
I'm not sure, but it's out of the bag, and it really got out of the bag with Marner more than the other guys.
Yeah.
Like Willie was up against it, right? Willie, he had stayed home in Sweden. They had like an hour to figure this out before his whole season was going to be lost.
Yeah.
They were in a cup window. Turns out they weren't, but they thought they were, and the world thought they were at that point. And they concluded, okay, $6.9 million for 6 years. Let's do it. I'm guessing Dubas and company moved closer to him as the deadline got there, but I think there was probably a point where Nylander said, all right, enough is enough. I'm not going to push for more because I can't. I'll take it. The Marner deal was the one that broke the camel's back because it was 2 games into camp, or 2 days into camp. They were out in Newfoundland.
But wait a second. Do you think it is the Marner deal, or do you think it's the Matthews deal which came first?
Well, the Matthews deal, though, came out of nowhere mid-season. So there was no pressure points. It just happened. Right? It was 5 years, $11.6 million out of the blue. No one saw that coming. What I'm saying is the Marner deal, remember, he didn't come to camp. Yep. They were out in Newfoundland. And then I think Dubas just said, screw it. We don't want to do this. Take it. And that's what has caused them the problems that they should have held strong on him and said, we're not changing off 10.5 if that's what it is.
But you also had just gone through the situation 1 year prior where your star winger sat out for 3 months.
Exactly.
And you're like, you know what, we can't do this again.
But now that's what I'm saying. So you can't just keep doing it in perpetuity. Every time they come up, fine, screw it, we have no backbone, take it. Because this is the issue.
But what's the alternative? Like, make a crappy trade? Or
ideally
make a
not.
trade?
Or you let them play it out.
Yeah.
You let them play it out. And then maybe you come to terms, halfway through next season. Or it doesn't work out and you say, Willie, great going, man. Awesome 8 years here in Toronto. 8 years is an eternity.
Yeah.
You want more money, you want to go somewhere else, see you later. We'll take that cap space, spend it elsewhere. Because what ends up happening in these exercises, it happens all the time, is, well, you don't want to lose this guy over $1 million. But that $1 million adds up. When you give them extra $1 million to Willie, extra $1 million to Marner, extra $1 million to Tavares, extra $1 million to Matthews, O'Reilly's in Nashville. Like all of a sudden, $4 million, it builds up. And that's always the argument is, well, who would you rather have, this guy or Willie? Well, Willie. But I'd rather have both.
But then
at some point you need to put your stake in the ground, and they need to start acting as if they're like every other team in the league that doesn't have to capitulate because they're in Toronto.
So I think that's right. But wouldn't you rather overpay Marner than overpay?
Why do you have to overpay anybody?
You do. Well, you cannot, and he'll just leave.
Why? How do we know they're going to leave?
Because why would he stay? The only reason to extend.
Doesn't he like being a Leaf? Doesn't he want to win here? I thought they always say that.
They have said.
Are they lying?
They are.
Are they?
They need to go to the lie detector.
They might have to.
For sure.
But that's always the fear. Well, they'll leave. Says who? And where were they going to go when they were restricted free agents?
But hang on.
Nowhere.
The only reason to extend, if you entice me to extend, because I'm giving up my chance at the open market, right? So if you're not, just like Johnny Gaudreau 2 years ago, where they didn't really make it so worth his while, where he's like, there's no point in me going to free agency. Mm-hmm. If you don't do that with Nylander, he'll just be like, all right, cool.
He very well
I'll just go to free agency.
Yes.
And you know who might be the top free agent next summer, aside from him?
Yeah, it could be William Nylander.
It might be Nylander.
It very well could be.
I mean, listen, he is this year. Orlov.
He is under no pressure to do anything.
But so my question to you is: so your red line basically is 9.5, right?
Yes, on a long-term deal.
So what happens if it's like you're really close and let's say he's come down from 10.5. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's got to be 10. And you're like, no, dude.
But
9.5 is
what's the point of negotiating? If
I don't know.
Always just going to eventually buckle.
But do you want to win the negotiation or do you want the player?
I think it's been proven in the hard cap system is you need to win both. The team needs to win the deals.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And that's what I think is very frustrating for a lot of Leaf fans is that the players don't seem to have noticed that. Like they just think we didn't get bounces. And it's like, well, maybe it's because you're all overpaid compared to the other players you're going up against. And as a result, your third line, your fourth line aren't as deep.
But are they overpaid or are they just
compared to who they're up against, they're absolutely overpaid. Look at the last team they played.
I think a lot of these star players have taken less than they should.
The Leaf star players?
No, the other
star players.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
And so they bring everything down. And these guys, I think what's interesting about the Leafs is they have personalities who are just like, I'm not going to play by those rules. I think I deserve, like Auston Matthews, I think I deserve X. Mm-hmm. That's what I think I deserve. I don't care that McKinnon took less or McDavid took less. You know what I mean? Nylander, unique personality. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be pushed into what I don't want to do.
What were the chances the Leafs were going to get all these unique personalities that refuse to budge or refuse to acknowledge that there's only a finite number available in terms of spending, and you got to put 18 guys on the ice every night. And if you want to win, there's a certain formula that has to be taken into account.
But why is...
So, in other words, did the players come to the table with that personality, or was it cultivated based on the way Toronto operates? Was it understood that they treat them like kings even well before they ever deserve to be?
Don't you think it's personality a little bit? Like, I think Matthews is willing to go his own way. Don't you? I don't know.
I don't know him personally. Like, I don't know these guys personally to be able to give an answer on that.
I don't know enough either. I mean, I spend more time with them than you, but like, I don't know. It's a hard thing. I don't know because, like, to your point, they could do what you're asking them to do and just be like, hard line. We're not doing that. We will trade you. And then what? Like, are you better, or is it nice that you won the negotiation but you're worse? Well, I don't know.
You didn't necessarily win the negotiation if you don't get them signed, right? Like, it basically became a wash.
But you win with your principles, and it's like, congrats.
Yeah, but you have to have principles, though.
I get it.
Do you not agree, Jonas? Like, a team has got. You can't just be stupid.
But what's the line?
But what's it done for you for the last 5 years? Having these guys make all this money. What has it done for them? One playoff round.
That's why you could make a very good case that bringing it all back again is unwise.
What, like, a lot of people end up, poking at me when we start talking about this stuff. And I've said countless times, individually, I like all four of them.
Sure.
They're all very, very good players. But collectively, it hasn't worked in the playoffs, and I don't see why it's just all of a sudden going to click in the future. It very well could. But there's this built-in fear in the city, like life without Matthews, life without Marner, as if the franchise didn't exist for 100 years prior to them showing up, and it's going to exist for hundreds of years after they leave. Yes, it could get worse. It very well. Ideally, you keep the guys you want to keep on, good deals, and then you spend the rest of the money appropriately, and they take off, and they fulfill this prophecy of these kids show up, drafted, developed, and boom, they finally bring a cup home. Mm-hmm. That would be great. That's the story I'm rooting for. I always have been. But the team, it's almost like we forgot that Lou, like there was a Lou Lamoriello standard, and then it was like, that is so crazy, we got to go the complete opposite way. And like Lou's, you can call him old school. He gets a lot of things wrong. The Pierre Engvall contract is insane.
How about the Semyon Varlamov?
The Varlamov as a backup is crazy. But
30-year-old Scott Mayfield, 7 years?
Lou was a believer, is a believer in the team has to come first. And I think that's been lost a little bit here. It's too much about what's this guy going to get? What do you do if you lose that guy? Well, he's going to walk on you. Like, everyone is just so... There's a self-esteem issue with these players. It's like they're holding it over the team and the fan base.
But don't you think the fan base has been scarred by what this team was before when, like, they went... I mean, obviously there was that period of success, but the team hasn't been to a final.
I think the president is scared of that, too. I think the team, I think the board of governors is well aware of that history. I think that's why they keep saying, like, we got to keep these guys because they're very good, very talented, great in the regular season. We're going to the playoffs every year. But at some point, you got to draw a line. And if they don't want to be here, they don't want to be here. You can't force them to be here. You can't pay them to be here. You're paying them to play for the Leafs and to win something here. Right? Like, it feels like the message has changed. Like, well, you got to pay them to make them stay. It's like, so are you paying him to live in Toronto and be an employee of the Maple Leafs, or are you paying him to be a player that's going to try to win?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I just struggle with, like, you're willing to sign him at 9.5, but then if it's like 10.5, and to your point, like when
10.5,
when does the line shift?
And then what if you say, fine, Willie, 10.5? He goes, actually, now it's 11.
Yeah.
And then what? Okay, fine, 11. And, at some point, you got to have standards. And it's the same thing with the Matthews stuff, like this idea that it's a percentage of the cap, which is a big part of the conversation. We're talking about that on Trade Center with Johnny.
I wrote about that.
And you've written about that too. Now, a lot of this is based on projection of what the cap is going to become, which we don't actually know what it is.
Fair, good point.
But secondly, if it's just going to be a projection of the cap that both sides agree to, and then a percentage, what's the point of agents? What's the point of a GM? Like, just have Chat GPT mock up the contract and sign it. Like, if it's that simple, if it's just, well, it's 16.2% of this projected cap, take it or leave it, then there is no negotiation.
It's not a negotiation.
But it should be a negotiation. And it is, because it's still the human element. Like, you're still talking about humans here. You're talking about people that you need to sell your program on and sell them on why they need to do something different.
But they know that the Leafs have no choice. What is the choice? Right?
Well, the choice
when you hold all the leverage, you hold all the leverage. You can sign it or you don't have to.
Absolutely.
Just go to free agency.
Yeah.
Like, if he became a free agent next summer, what would his contract be?
Auston, you're talking?
Yeah.
Probably 14 a year over 7 years, I guess.
More.
Would it? I don't know. What if he scores 40 again next year?
Yeah, I think it would be more. But yeah, fair.
How much more, though? Like, the highest paid guy in the league is $12.6 million. He's going to make $1.5 million more per year?
I mean, yeah.
Really?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
If you were a team and he'd be 26 going on 27, 27-year-old historic scorer, number one center, very good defensively, was available, you wouldn't pay him 15 if that's what it took to get him? Of course you would.
If you had it. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder. I'm curious how the rest of the league looks at it, though, because the Leafs they're an experiment, right? They're the only team doing it like this. 3 guys making $11 million plus, right?
Yeah.
Like, the way that I credit them because they've found other players to fill out the roster. They're not as deep on the third and fourth line. They're not as deep defensively as other teams. They're not as deep in net or with certain backups that are available in the NHL. And a lot of that is because they're hamstrung because of the amount of money going into it.
You could say, like you said, the Marner thing was the turning point.
Well, that was just such a blatant, screw it, we're not fighting anymore, take it.
I would go back
to it that way?
Signing to Tavares. Because there was a point at that point, which is 18, where I think they could have signed Matthews and I think they could have signed Marner for way less and longer, and they didn't.
Yeah, you're probably right. That I can't disagree with that started a trend. Like, all right, you gave him 11.
Well, and then they didn't hustle to get the other ones done.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Well, that was because Lou had taught Kyle, if you have time, use it. Be patient, and then look at the situation they found themselves in. All I'm saying is the Marner one.
Yeah, no, I think
it was such a blatant screw it, take it. Like, it was so blatant. Like, fine, I'm not showing up to camp. Fine, forget it. Just get to Newfoundland. We need you.
And it was still only 6 years.
And it was only 6 at almost $11 million. When Ranton in like a week later signed for 9.5.
I started thinking about that. So his next contract, minimum, and I know this is like jumping the gun. This is very Toronto. It's like it's going to start with 11 at least.
Well,
he's not taking less, right?
He's probably gonna,
so it's probably going to be 11. It might even be 12.
Yeah, he's probably going to ask for a raise. Yeah, you're probably right. All right, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic is in here. The Jays are back in action tonight. Clutch hitting last night, Jonas, something we have not been used to this year. Started with Whit Merrifield, and then Vladdy finally goes deep opposite field. That was a big 2-run bomb last night. Swanson gets out of a jam. Romano looked great in the ninth. That is what they're looking for. Clutch hitting, get to the big arms in the bullpen, take care of business. And the news broke yesterday around 6:20. Alek Manoah will return on Friday in Detroit. A.J. Pierzynski, longtime White Sox catcher, MLB World Series winner. He will join us. He's got a podcast and a show out. Catch up with A.J. We've got Nick Foligno on the show, former Leaf, current Chicago Blackhawk. He'll join us just after 5 o'clock. Role play level of concern in about an hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Jose Barrios on the mound tonight. Man, the Jays needed that last night. They have been so bad in game 1 of a series. We're going on, 6 weeks now. Feels like every single time they start a series, they're behind the 8 ball and they're chasing it. And Merrifield with that big double last night gets them on the board. They're up 2-0, and then all of a sudden it starts to fade on them pretty quickly, basically with the crack of a bat on the White Sox side of things. Vladdy steps up, though, gets the job done. Like, it was such a sigh of relief because this team has struggled so mightily when it comes to clutch hitting and having runners in scoring position and just getting that big moment, late in a game when you're behind it. It's a game that you probably feel you should win, and they still almost threw it away with poor fundamentals, Springer and Wright. But they get out of it, and, man, they needed that last night.
I was thinking coming in, if you're looking ahead to the second half and you're thinking like optimistically, wouldn't you think all that stuff would change in the second half?
Like everything's going to start breaking their way?
I don't know, and that some of their better players will perform better than they have, Vlad included.
I think Vladdy is the example, right? Like Vladdy, there haven't been many moments like what we saw last night out of him. And he is the guy who's going to drive this. Bichette is going to do what he's been doing for years, leading the majors in hits. He's been doing it for years. He's had a phenomenal season. You're not sure what you're getting out of Springer, series in, series out, although he's been a lot better recently, a lot better the last 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Chapman's had an up-and-down year. Kirk has really never found a rhythm. Varshaw's been okay. Kiermaier's been very good, but you know what he is. And if anything, you'd probably expect him to come back to earth a little bit, possibly in the second half.
Belt's been good.
Belt's been good when healthy. But really, it comes down to Vladdy. Like, Vladdy is a guy that is capable of turning a season around by getting red hot for 2 or 3 months. And if he does that, and he's done it in the past, I'd feel very good about where they're at. Like, more so than Manoah returning. If you could give me one option, you're like, Manoah returns to form or Vladdy returns to form from a couple of years ago for the rest of the way, I'm taking Vladdy.
100%.
Right, because he steps up to the plate every single day.
You can replace, in theory, Manoah. You can't replace.
You cannot replace Vladdy, and he's giving you at-bats. He's still got how many more at-bats this year? 250 more at-bats?
Yeah.
Like, this guy has got to be electric for you because he's capable of doing it, and you penciled it in coming into the season.
Where do you think he ranks in WAR? I just looked this up.
He's probably not in the top 50.
120th.
120.
And this is on Fangraphs.
Wow.
Now that accounts for his defense, but
see, defensively, I don't think he's been a problem.
Oh.
His statistics would suggest otherwise.
I don't know how they do this, man.
The eye test doesn't necessarily meet Team Corsi when it comes to Fangraphs.
That's like behind Springer. That's obviously behind Bichette. I think it's behind Varsho even.
That's wild. Like, Varshaw's hit for some power, but defensively, Varshaw's a stud.
Right. Well, that counts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. How they weigh that, I'm not.
But like
sure.
I'm looking at it. I think he's got 13 and what has he got? 13 homers right now. 54 RBIs.
Well, and a lot of his home runs have come recently. He had 2 last weekend against Oakland. He's had 4 home runs in the last 9 games, 10 games.
So do you think he over under 30 and a half home runs?
See, I'm starting to lean over now.
Yeah, you should.
Because of what's coming, right? Like he's too good to only hit and be on pace for 21, 22 home runs. I don't think he's going to return to a 48 home run pace at any point the rest of his career. I think that was a magical year. The thing is, you look at the stats, a lot of those were in Dunedin and in Buffalo. Yeah. Like that was still COVID-related statistics, and he was patting stats, and he was hitting bombs in parks that were not Major League home run parks. I think he's more than capable of being a guy that can hover around 35 every year.
35 and like a 310 average kind of thing?
Yeah. And he should have an OPS up over 900 every single year.
Yeah.
Like, in his prime, that's who he is. And again, if he starts moving in that direction and he does that the rest of the way, the Jays are going to be in a good spot. Like, Aaron Judge plays that role for the Yankees, and he's still out with that toe injury. And I guess he came out today or yesterday and said it's going to take years for that toe to recover.
If ever, I think.
If ever.
Yeah.
How does a toe not recover? Like, how can you make a call that my toe will never recover? It is so damaged that it will never recover. And what did he do to possibly get in a position where there's a diagnosis that comes back saying, Aaron, I hate to break it to you, but your toe will never be 100% again?
Do you think you could do the show if your toe was like...
Yes.
What if we removed one of your toes? You could
on the air?
No.
I couldn't finish the show if you cut my toe off right now. If that's what you're asking.
And isn't this the first year of that deal? The 9-year deal?
Yes. $40 million a year. Right. And I'm not thinking they're getting much value on that right now. That's got to be terrifying. If you're a Steinbrenner and you're looking at the Yankees, they're having an underwhelming season to begin with, based on their standards. And Judge is telling you he may never feel 100%. And you're paying this guy 300. What is it? Was it $400 million deal?
I think so, yeah. Or was it like high 3?
It was something close to that anyway.
How come we never talk about the Vladdy contract anymore?
Vladdy? Well,
is that just gone?
I think because it dipped. I don't think he wants people talking about it.
Remember when that was a thing? Like 10 years, like Soto money.
I was going to say, how about your boy Juan Soto? No one's talking about that anymore. I don't know if Juan's getting the same deal he got in Washington a year and a half ago. Do you think if Juan Soto was a free agent today, he'd get $440 million?
No.
Like, he's been really, really underwhelming in San Diego.
Better lately, but yeah, it's not been amazing.
But he's still 24 years old or whatever.
Yeah, he's going to be great. He is great.
I know. Like, you have to have faith that Juan Soto will figure it out.
I have more faith that he hits it than Vladdy, obviously.
Yeah, I probably would too. And he had a better start to his career. He was a better player than Vladdy. But you're talking like the third best player in baseball compared to the eighth, or 12th. Like when Vladdy was at his height,
yeah,
Vladdy was a legitimate top 10 player in the game. He hasn't been really since. But that doesn't mean even the WAR numbers, that's not truly indicative of how you would rank him if you were ranking every player in Major League Baseball right now.
I mean, even the offensive numbers are just like kind of like...
No, they're underwhelming. They're very underwhelming. Like compared to what you're seeing, like you look at Ohtani, who's a different beast.
I just looked up his June numbers. Actually, I have.
He had 15 home runs in June.
Yes, so these were his June numbers.
15 in June.
In June, he had 104 at bats, 15 homers, 29 RBIs. He batted .394. His OPS was 1444.
Wow, insanity.
Yeah,
but now he's got the blister issue.
I was watching that game, and
if he can't pitch, does that affect his MVP pursuit? If he has to miss...
You can't hit with a blister on your hand.
He said he's going to try to continue to hit.
I mean, see, that you can go without a toe, but like...
Well, I mean, to be fair to Judge said at some point he's going to have to play through pain, and he probably will. That would suggest he's going to return this year. But I don't know. I think Ohtani's, as far as I'm concerned, what I heard last night, I thought he said he was going to try to continue to hit. He may not be in the lineup tonight. But... like, does he need, if the Angels are going to fade, and I think everyone thinks they're going to now, with Trout out for a couple of months, Rendon went down last night. If they fade again, they finish with 78 wins, they're nowhere close to the playoffs. If he can't pitch, can he win the MVP based on his bat alone?
Yeah. It's not a pitching award, is it?
No, but I think the big part of his allure is the fact that he does both. Right? Like that year he won the MVP over Vladdy. Offensively, he was not better than Vladdy.
No, he was like basically the same.
Yeah, they were around the same. But don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he had 12 home runs and, a 650 OPS. The guy's numbers were still staggering. But I think you could argue you want one guy up to the plate at any point during that season. Vladdy might be the guy you'd pick. But it was such a lopsided decision because Ohtani was doing what he was doing on the mound. Like, what about in terms of a contract? Because everyone's buzzing about Ohtani making $600 million a year, or not a year, but $600 million on his contract. And does he make $45 a year, $50 million a year when he starts, re-upping next year? If he's just a bat, what does that contract look like?
Not that.
No, clearly. But is it still a $350 million deal?
Yeah. Isn't he almost like 30?
Yeah, I think he's 29.
But I mean, Judge was 30, so maybe.
But Judge had the Yankee thing too, right? Like he just hit 62. The Yankees were desperate to keep him. The amount of jerseys they sell, it's New York. Steinbrenner's, they would have been run out of town if they let him walk because they weren't willing to pay. Like the Angels, I don't know if they're as beholden to Ohtani. And I'm not sure if they'd feel, like they should feel they've got everything they possibly could out of him, even though he had Tommy John and he missed, a portion of a couple of seasons.
Don't you think they should?
But they haven't won anything.
Shouldn't they trade him?
You would think so.
Why wouldn't you now? Especially now, Trout's out months.
Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, they're done. I mean, they're not going to right now because they're still in the wild card race.
I'm looking. They're 4 games back.
Yeah, which still counts as in the race when you're on July 5th. Right, they're 2 games above 500. You can't sell Ohtani right now, but you only have so much time. Right? They got 3 weeks to figure it out. I don't get the impression they're going to, like based on the reports I've seen and I've heard.
Said they're not going to.
Yeah, they're going to keep him. They're going to go for it. They're going to try to stay in it. Kind of feels like they'll just waste away. No playoffs, and maybe he stays though. Like maybe he likes it. What's wrong with living in Anaheim?
Play for the Dodgers for $400 million.
Why not? Yeah. I'd probably take them up on that opportunity myself, but I can't speak for him. Who knows? Like, he chose the Angels, I think, originally because he wanted to be on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. If he gets to free agency, though, and he opens it up to the floor and says, I'll go anywhere, or whoever's willing to pay me the most, that will be bedlam. And it'll scare the hell out of owners because they'll know their fan bases are watching. Like, are you going to do it, or are you not going to do it?
Well, won't you be talking about it?
Absolutely.
For the Jays?
Absolutely. If that happened, it came out, Ohtani is willing to go to whoever's willing to pay him the most. The Jays better be willing to at least get in there.
What would your offer be?
That's the thing. If it's
half
like
a bill,
probably have to be more than that.
600.
I think probably $600 million to get him. Probably a 10-year deal, like $600 million.
Oh man,
is that insane or what? But that's how good he is, and that's how much. Like how many jerseys, everything that comes with
appeal.
That's the thing. In Japan, the guy's the king. The amount of money the Angels are probably making in Japan is crazy. All right, AJ Pierzynski may or may not be joining us. We'll see. Nick Foligno's coming up. Steve Phillips will join us. Role play level of concern still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, we were just talking about this in the break. It is so hot up here in Toronto, and it looks crazy hot in Chicago. And a catcher's got to get out there and grind, man. They got to get out there and grind. And it doesn't matter if it feels like 100 degrees, if it is 100 degrees down there in the States and the game is going on, you're playing, man. You're playing. And the ump looks so uncomfortable. But that's baseball. That's the beauty of it, right?
Just the ump is just dressed in black and all these pads and equipment, masks.
Nothing you can do. Well, you got to have it, right? It doesn't matter how hot it is. You got to make sure you're protected. Same thing with catchers, and we got a guy on the line here that knows a thing or two about that. Longtime MLB catcher, 05 World Series champ, down with the White Sox, and co-host of Foul Territory. Here's AJ Pierzynski. What's up, AJ?
Not much. How are y'all doing? By the way, two things. One, it's not that hot in Chicago.
Okay.
Because I'm here, so it's not that bad.
Yep.
It rained a little bit, so it's cleared it up a little bit. And two, I mean, listen, y'all, what are y'all doing about these wildfires that keep making me cough? Can we do something about this, please?
That's in Quebec. We got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it is wild up here. You're not kidding, man. Quebec, it's been going on out in the West Coast for a long, long time, and it is hitting you guys hard, isn't it? We've seen pictures in New York. Is it bad in Chicago, too?
It's bad, but it rained, so it cleared it up. I was in New York, by the way, that day. The Yankees and the White Sox game got canceled. The sky was orange. It was the freakiest thing you've ever seen in your life. I've never seen anything like it, but hopefully you guys are cleaning that up, or those French Canadians, right, are cleaning it up for us. So,
yeah, exactly. They'll take care of it. They'll take care of it.
Yeah, but no, it's good.
Okay.
Good. I've actually seen a bunch of the Blue Jays the last couple of days. Randomly, I'm in Chicago for my daughter's volleyball tournament, and we happen to be staying at the same hotel. So I'm up on my Blue Jays knowledge.
Well, I guess we'll begin with this Manoah story because it shocked us yesterday. Alek Manoah, this was the ace of the staff. He got the ball opening day, got the ball game one of the wild card series last year, and he was a mess up here this season. They sent him to the Florida Complex League. He gets lit up there. He goes to Double-A. He pitches pretty well. I didn't think we'd see him until like September. Now he's coming back on Friday in Detroit. What do you make of that story?
It's weird. It's strange. You see a guy that was that good, and then you start looking back. When you look at his numbers last year, the peripheral stuff wasn't as good as his actual numbers. He stranded a ton of guys last year. His stuff was down a little bit, I thought, last year after going back and looking at it. And then this year, his slider just isn't doing. I guess his slider isn't sliding. Is that what they are? Sweeper isn't sweeping. I don't know which one the right terminology is. But he's behind the count with so many guys. And I discount the Florida Complex League. You're pitching against like 18, 19-year-old kids that if you throw it close, they're swinging at it. They don't give you a chance to set up stuff. And I've seen many a big league guy go down to that league and get just mollywopped by kids. And they're like, I'm facing a big leaguer today. Watch this. First pitch he throws, they're swinging at it. And they're getting hits, and they're over-aggressive. Whereas when you get into higher levels, it doesn't happen. The thing that concerns me about Alek is the walk. He still walked 3 in Double-A. It wasn't like he walked get 0 or 1. I mean, 3 is a lot in Double A, and the strike zone only gets smaller as you get up the level. And I think it's a calculated risk by Toronto because they're pitching against Detroit. They're not exactly, the Yankees or the Braves from this year. So you're a little bit more open to some failure, meaning like you can make some mistakes and they'll miss them a little bit more, I think. But it is an interesting story because you don't usually see a guy complex league whack, Double A, did okay, and then boom, all right, you're pitching in the big leagues again, especially after what a quick fall it was.
Right, and I'm curious if you can put yourself in the shoes of Alejandro Kirk. If you're catching for him on Friday, what's running through your mind considering what Manoah's gone through? The fact that he's back up and all eyes will be on him, like the baseball world to be watching on Friday night. What do you think the catching role will be like, and what that experience might be like?
Well, isn't it Jansen? Doesn't Jansen have more success with him than Kirk?
Yeah.
It might not be Kirk behind the plate. So
true enough.
If I'm catching and I'm behind the plate, you know what I want? I want a clean first inning. I want a first inning where he goes out there, and I don't care if guys hit 3 rockets off of him that are caught, and he goes 3 up, 3 down. I want him to get a clean first inning, get some confidence. Now, if he can punch a guy out or do something nice, but I don't want guys on base. I don't want traffic. I want him to walk off that field after the first inning feeling like the greatest pitcher alive. And you're pumping him up the entire time, telling him how great his stuff is from the bullpen to when you're playing long toss with him in the outfield. And then you just hope and pray that he gets through the first inning clean, and then it can just start building from there.
Do you buy that the pitch clock could have been a factor with Alek Manoah? I'm just thinking back, like you worked with Mark Burley, who was like the fastest pitcher alive. Like, do you think it could impact someone like Manoah negatively?
100%. Because wasn't he like the second or third slowest worker in Major League Baseball last year? Was that?
Yeah, he's slow.
The stats,
really slow.
Something like that. So I think, 100% it could affect him. Now, he also had all spring and everything to kind of get used to it. That's just an easy excuse. I think if you ask him, he'll say no. But the guy pitches a certain way, and there was plenty of guys I played with that would take the air out of the ball, right? Where they would say, okay, this team's rallying. I'm going to walk around and slow everything down and get free timeouts by tying my shoe or whatever it is. You can't do that anymore because they're like, hurry up, I got to throw. So I definitely think it could affect him. He'll never admit that. It's an easy excuse, but there are other things also, like I said. His stuff was down a little bit last year from the year before. I just didn't think it would drop off as quickly to where it is now.
We're chatting with longtime MLB catcher, World Series champ AJ Pierzynski, also the co-host of Foul Territory. The Angels are a team that comes up a lot basically because of the star, players they have out there. And now you got Trout, who's back on the AL, likely to be out, possibly for a couple of months. Ohtani had to come out of the game last night with blister issues. How do you kind of look at what the Angels have done over the years, considering the amount of talent they've had? We're talking all-time great players and all-time great seasons, and yet they never sniffed the playoffs, and they're likely going to fade again this year. As a player yourself, like how do you even define what the Angels are all about?
You can't. It's the ultimate goal is I want to see Mike Trout in the playoffs, don't you? I want to see Shohei pitch and hit in the playoffs, right? Go out, pitch, and then hit a home run as a DH at the same time. That would be incredible to see. The problem is that they're not a very well-built team, pitching-wise, whatever, around Trout. Ohtani, Rendon can't stay on the field. Neto, their shortstop, they called up third. Their catcher is hurt. It's like, gosh, they're just snakes it. And here's my question I'm going to ask you guys, and you can laugh probably at me, but the Blue Jays have all the money in the world. Why don't they make a run to their top?
Absolutely. We were talking about that. Like, especially if he becomes free, they got more. They got as much as anybody in terms of, Rogers, the Empire. They got a lot of money they can't spend. It just never seems to come up that way.
Hey, they have a whole country, let's not forget, behind them.
That's right.
They don't have just Rogers. They have a country behind them.
Yep.
And there's going to Toronto for a long time and playing a lot of games there. There's no louder place than when Rogers Center gets rocking and it's packing in. And I don't know why. I think there's one thing that's weird. Nobody's really mentioned Toronto. You mentioned L.A. and you mentioned New York. And you mentioned Boston's been a little mentioned in the Cubs. But, man, Toronto's got more money than anybody. He would look real good in the Blue Jays uniform. They could even get the bird that does the crazy dance, Let's go Blue Jays. Maybe they change it like, let's go Shohei or something.
I like the way you're thinking here, AJ. We're on board with that. We'll send an email for you, and we'll see how that one plays out. Thank you for doing this. We'll let you get back to the tournament.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me. And, anytime you need me, I love talking baseball.
You got it. AJ Pierzynski from Foul Territory, longtime MLB catcher, World Series champ.
We didn't even have to, bring that up. He just brought it up.
Yeah. He's doing the bidding of the Jays or possibly Shohei Ohtani. I don't think Ohtani's going to have too much trouble building up a market.
No.
Right? That one's going to be interesting.
Is he the most sought after?
If he hits free agency, it'll be
ever?
the most unique free agent pursuit, I would think, ever. I mean, you'd have to go back to A-Rod situations, maybe Barry Bonds.
Well, Judge was a
Griffey.
free agent, right?
Yes, he did.
Remember,
technically hit free agency.
sign.
Yeah, and he flew
Giants.
to San Fran, and he was going to the Giants. But this feels different. Ohtani's a completely different beast. So we'll see. Well, it feels like it's going to get to that point now. At a minimum, he's going to hit the market. Maybe he returns to L.A. and stays with the Angels. But at a minimum, you're going to think at this point he's going to check out what's going on.
Unless he gets traded and then that team signs him.
Possibly. Yep, that's possible too. Hour 2 coming up. Nick Foligno will join us. Role play level of concern. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.